Welcome to This Explainer. Today we're diving into a seriously provocative essay that asks a pretty uncomfortable question. Is your modern 9-to-5 job actually just a carefully designed hallucination? We're going to unpack a fascinating piece of writing that argues that the things we take for granted, what we call the economy and corporate culture, well, they aren't natural laws of the universe at all. They're highly orchestrated fictions. So let's just dive right in and see exactly how the author deconstructs the modern professional world.
The author hooks us immediately by challenging a foundational belief that we pretty much all hold in our society. Right now, landing a corporate job is often treated like winning some kind of small private lottery. You get a salary, a title, a laptop with a cool corporate sticker, and suddenly society tells you that you've made it. You're safe. But the text argues that this safety is actually the very first lie. Instead of freedom, the author suggests that employment might literally be the most elegant trap ever designed. It's like a soft cage, heavily padded with ergonomic chairs, health insurance, and performance reviews. You're given this illusion of standing on solid ground, when in reality, you're standing on a moving platform built out of debt, compliance, and a massive collective agreement to just keep pretending.
All right, so let's move on and decode this ritual machine. We'll see how the text builds the argument that modern work is far more than just a simple economic exchange. It operates a whole lot like a religious system.
Now, every system absolutely needs symbols to organize belief, right? It's like a giant puzzle. Just as historical religions used physical symbols, robes, incense, temples, sacred language, to structure faith, the modern corporation does the exact same thing. But obviously, the symbols have changed. Instead of holy books, we have onboarding decks and OKRs. Instead of temples, we have the open plan office. We have quarterly goals, mission statements, and those all-hands meetings where, as the author brilliantly points out, everyone just claps at nothing. These aren't just practical business tools, they are actual ceremonies designed to organize and enforce our belief in the company.
And to maintain this grand illusion, the language we speak acts as the smoke and mirrors powering the whole machine. The author argues that companies use this incredibly boring form of occultism. They rely on spreadsheets and HR jargon rather than candles and incantations to cast a spell of repetition. Let's be real, nobody's ever going to explicitly tell you your time is being harvested. Instead, they say, we really value ownership. Nobody comes out and says, you are completely disposable to us. They say, we are restructuring. This abstract language completely hides the reality of extraction. In fact, the more fake the work is, the more inflated the words become. Terms like strategic enablement or cross-functional impact, they simulate importance, so we don't have to admit that the building is, metaphorically speaking, empty. So the absolutely crucial point the author makes here is that corporate culture isn't just harmless decoration. It's not just about free snacks, ping pong tables, or a fun Slack channel. Culture is a meticulously crafted mechanism for compliance. It is control that learned how to smile. It's designed to make you willingly sacrifice your attention at the altar of the dashboard.
Okay, this brings us to the next big concept, the designed economic hallucination. This is the idea that the economy isn't some natural weather system we simply have to weather, but a fabricated story enforced by laws and contracts.
Notice how clearly the text draws a line between the symbolic world and the physical one here. We always talk about the economy as if it's nature, but it's a designed hallucination. Look at the left side: money, job titles, corporate strategy, shareholder value. These are entirely made up. They are a shared story. But then look at the right side: rent, exhaustion, the physical toll of layoffs, that awful anxiety sitting in your stomach at 2 a.m. Those are brutally real. The trick of the system, the real sleight of hand here, is that the symbolic world literally feeds on the physical world. The artificial dream extracts finite human life, your focus, your emotion, your physical presence, and converts it into operational energy. And in return, you get permission to survive for another month.
Which leads us to a glaring question in the text: the crowd of hostages. If people know the meetings are theater and the metrics are completely manipulated, why on earth do they keep playing along?
Well, the author explains that the trap isn't just mental, it is fiercely material. People perform sanity inside an utterly insane system simply because the consequences of not doing so are devastating. You might know a manager is just managing optics, or that a new company initiative is total garbage, but you still nod and say, "Great question," in the Zoom meeting. Why? Because rent is real, food is real, your children, your student debt, your immigration status, your need for healthcare, these are all very, very real.
Therefore, the essay posits a sobering reality about your colleagues. That crowd nodding along to a meaningless slide deck? They aren't always true believers. The system forces a performance. Often, that crowd is made of hostages who have simply learned the language of their captors to survive. We perform the correct personality at the correct time because, let's face it, the alternative is material ruin. Now, what's really interesting is how this cuts through the fog to ask, who actually benefits? Who profits from keeping millions of people in a state of artificial urgency?
According to the text, it is certainly not the worker. The worker just gets a controlled salary band. Instead, your finite human energy flows straight upward. The system gets predictability. The owners get leverage. Tech platforms harvest your data, institutions secure your obedience, and the managerial class gains status. The machine gets fed. Crowds of workers aren't gathered because they're wise. They are gathered because they are incredibly useful. They can be measured, divided, optimized, and ultimately replaced.
This completely shatters the myth of the modern job market. The essay frames employment not as some pure meritocracy that simply rewards the smartest or most hardworking people, but as a rigid system of resource management cleverly disguised as personal purpose. It dictates who gets time, who gets housing, who gets to rest, and who gets to create. And it rarely answers those questions through pure merit. It answers them through access, networks, and institutional permission.
In this view, corporate talent has a very specific and honestly somewhat dark definition. The system does not simply reward intelligence, it rewards compatibility above all else. Can you speak the corporate language perfectly? Can you tolerate humiliation politely? Can you obey while calling it leadership? If you can seamlessly turn your own nervous system into a compliant business asset, then, and only then, are you considered talent. So let's talk about the mental exit strategy. How do we break free if, as the author notes, simply quitting might just land us in another trap?
The author outlines a philosophical exit strategy. The very first act of freedom isn't raging and quitting, it's seeing clearly. Step 1. See that the system is completely made up, that the rituals are just rituals, and that the economy is just a story with consequences. Once you see the strings, the spell weakens. Step 2. You can take the money without swallowing the mythology. Actually, scratch that. It's more like you have to take the money to survive, but you do not have to worship the machine that consumes you. And Step 3. Do the work, but refuse to become the role. You can survive inside the dream without ever confusing it with reality. You detach your soul and your identity from your job title.
To wrap up our explainer today, I want to leave you with the essay's final lingering provocation. We are often told that being angry at how things work is childish or even crazy. But maybe the real madness isn't being angry at the system. Maybe the absolute peak of madness is looking at this giant theater of fear, performance, extraction, and fake meaning, and simply calling it normal. So what will you do tomorrow morning, now that you can see the strings?